My fiancé said, "You need to put my name on your house or there is no wedding." I said, "Okay, no wedding." She laughed like I was bluffing. I canceled the venue before breakfast. 2 days later, her brother called me heartless. By Friday, her mother was begging me not to tell anyone why. Original post. I'm Colin, 34M. I work as a senior accountant for a regional construction company in Charlotte. My fiancée, Brooke, is 31 and works in event planning, which used to feel ironic in a cute way because she loved weddings and details and all that picture-perfect stuff. We'd been together just over 3 years, engaged for 10 months. Wedding was 7 weeks away. Important detail up front. The house is mine, not ours. Mine. I bought it almost 2 years before I met Brooke. Small brick place on a corner lot. Nothing huge. 3 bedrooms, 1-car garage, mortgage in my name only, deed in my name only, down payment from the money I'd saved by living like a monk through my late 20s. By the time Brooke moved in, I'd already replaced the roof, redone the kitchen counters, and paid the mortgage down enough that I finally felt like an adult instead of a guy cosplaying one. That matters because Brooke had been making comments for months. Casual at first, then less casual. Things like, "It still feels weird saying I live in your house." Or, "If something happened to you, where would that leave me?" Then it turned into comparisons. Her friend Natalie got married and her husband added her to the deed 6 months later. Another friend got a joint savings account before the honeymoon. Brooke collected other people's lives the way some people collect throw pillows. The actual blow-up happened on a Tuesday night at our dining room table. She had that flat, prepared tone people use when they've rehearsed an argument in the shower. She said, "I talked to my cousin's husband. He's in real estate. He agrees it's not normal for me to marry you while I'm still basically a guest in your house." I put my fork down. Asked what that was supposed to mean. She said, "It means you need to put my name on your house before the wedding, not after. Before. Because if you really saw me as your wife, this wouldn't even be a discussion." I remember looking at her and waiting for the softening. The smile. The little "oh relax, I'm kidding." It never came. I said, "Brooke, I'm not putting anyone on a deed to a house they didn't buy." She leaned back and folded her arms. Then she said the line that ended the whole thing. "You need to put my name on your house or there is no wedding, no yelling, no tears, just cold certainty." Like she was announcing the weather, I asked, "Are you really making that an ultimatum?" She said, "I'm setting a standard. If you can't meet it, maybe you're not ready to be a husband." That was it for me. No big speech, no dramatic explosion, just clarity, clean and immediate. I said, "Okay, no wedding." She actually laughed. That was the wildest part. She laughed like I was pouting. Like I'd cool off and come back with flowers and an apology and maybe a trip to the courthouse to sign over half my house for the privilege of being loved correctly. I got up, took my plate to the sink, and went upstairs. At 7:12 the next morning, I emailed the venue, then the photographer, then the florist, then the DJ. By 8:04, I'd canceled or frozen everything that was in my name. We lost $1,850 in non-refundable deposits. It wasn't fun. It was still cheaper than divorce. At 8:17, Brooke came into my office in her robe holding her phone. "What did you do?" I said, "I canceled the wedding." She stared at me like she didn't understand English. Then the panic started. "Colin, stop. I was trying to have an adult conversation." "No, you were trying to use our wedding as leverage. You're overreacting." "Maybe, still canceled." Then came the classics. "You embarrassed me." "My mom is going to freak out." "Do you know what this makes me look like?" I never said we were really over. I was trying to protect myself. I told her she could stay with her sister for a few days while we sorted out her things. I'd cover a hotel if she didn't want to go there. She refused both just on principle, then spent the next hour slamming drawers and crying loud enough for the neighbors. At 1043 that night, her brother texted me. Real men protect their future wives. At 11:02, her maid of honor texted. "Please tell me this isn't about paperwork." I didn't answer either one. I took screenshots, started a folder, sent myself an email summary of the whole timeline. Then I changed the garage code. That was the original post. Wedding off, house untouched, peace gone. Update 1. It's been 4 days. and Brooke still seems convinced this was a negotiation instead of an ending. She left for her sister Paige's place the day after the cancellation, but not before telling me I'd regret making a permanent decision over a temporary disagreement. That wording stuck with me because it said everything. To her, the disagreement was me refusing to hand over equity. The permanent decision was me finally hearing her clearly. The first flying monkey was Paige. She called from Brooke's phone because I'd already muted Brooke's texts. Paige said, "Look, Brooke feels stupid. Can you just talk to her without being prideful?" I said, "Brooke demanded legal ownership of my house or no wedding." I accepted her terms. There's nothing prideful about that. Paige sighed like I was being difficult on purpose. Then she said Brooke was just scared of instability. That one almost made me laugh. Instability. From the person threatening to blow up the wedding unless I signed over my premarital asset. Then Brooke emailed me a 3-page message titled, "What I Actually Meant." That was the subject line. In the email, she said she wasn't asking for the house, just security. Then 2 paragraphs later, she said if I truly loved her, I'd understand why putting her on the deed was the minimum. Minimum. Her word. Not mine. I replied with one sentence, "You made your position clear and I've made mine." That same afternoon, she showed up at my office. Not to talk, to perform. She was holding coffee from that little place near my building, wearing the blue dress I always liked, crying just enough to be noticeable in a lobby but not enough to ruin her mascara. Reception called up and said, "Your fiancé is here." I said, "Ex-fiancé. Please let her know I'm unavailable." 10 minutes later, my receptionist, Denise, who has seen every variety of nonsense humanity can produce, came into my office and set the coffee on my desk. She said she told me it's all a misunderstanding. I told her misunderstandings usually don't involve legal documents. Then I asked security to walk her out. Unexpected ally. Denise forever. That night, Brooke sent me 17 texts in a row. The first 5 were apologies. The next 6 were accusations. Then came bargaining. Then a weird little threat near the end. "You better hope nobody asks why this wedding was canceled." I didn't respond. Just forwarded everything to the folder I'd started. Text screenshots, email copies, timestamps, call logs. Calm is easier when you document. 2 days after that, her dad called me. I almost didn't answer because I assumed he was going to do the whole father of the bride lecture. Instead, he was quiet for a second and then asked, "Did Brooke really tell you there'd be no wedding unless you put her on the deed?" I said yes. He let out this long, tired breath and said, "I told her not to say that." That was the first time I felt anything close to relief, not because I needed validation. I was already done, but because it meant I wasn't crazy. Somebody else had heard the same entitlement and recognized it for what it was. He said he wasn't calling to convince me to take her back. He was calling because Brooke was telling people I canceled the wedding over stress and commitment issues, and he didn't want me blindsided. I thanked him. He said, "For what it's worth, son, you did the right thing." Then he hung up. Brooke found out he called me. That did not help. Update 2, it's been a little over 3 weeks now, and things escalated from manipulative to ridiculous. First, Brooke sent me a Venmo request for $12,640 with the note, "Reimbursement for wedding losses, housing instability, and emotional damages." Emotional damages. On Venmo. I declined it and wrote, "I already absorbed $1,850 in canceled vendor deposits. We are not discussing this through an app." Then one of her friends, Kelsey, tried calling me pretending to be from a title company. I knew because she left a voicemail too fast and used Brooke's last name by accident. Something about just verifying whether I wanted to update the deed before marriage. That got saved immediately. After that, Brooke started orbiting the house. I have a Ring camera at the front door and one over the garage. On a Thursday at 9:18 p.m., she came by when she thought I was still at the gym. Tried the old garage remote. Didn't work. Tried the side gate. Left a folded letter in the mailbox even though I'd already told her twice to keep communication to email. I read the letter only because my attorney told me to preserve everything. It was the usual mix. "I miss you. You're throwing away our future. I only pushed because I needed to know you were serious. Then the line that made me sit back in my kitchen and actually laugh once, out loud by myself. A house can be rebuilt. Trust can't. That from the woman who tried to extort a deed transfer with a wedding deadline. I called a lawyer the next morning and paid a $450 retainer for a cease and desist letter. Money well spent. He also told me to stop doing verbal conversations entirely, so I did. Every response after that was one line, written, boring and impossible to twist. That same weekend, Brooke demanded access to the garage because she'd stored thousands of dollars worth of wedding decor there. Mostly fake candles, table runners, cheap signage, and some glass vases in boxes she bought in bulk online. Still, it was hers, so I agreed to a pickup window. Saturday, noon, front driveway, her items only. She arrived with Paige and 2 bridesmaids like they were storming a castle. One of the bridesmaids filmed on her phone the second she got out of the car. Brooke started talking before her feet fully hit the pavement. "You're seriously making me do this like a stranger." I said, "Your boxes are by the garage." She walked right past them and tried to step into the house. I moved once, blocked the doorway, and said no. That's when she did the voice. Loud enough for the camera, shaky enough for effect. "Wow, after everything, you can't even let me inside." No, she stood there waiting for more explanation, emotion, anything. I gave her nothing. She hated that. Paige started in next. "Are you enjoying humiliating her?" I said. "I'm returning her belongings." One of the bridesmaids, Aubrey, suddenly went very quiet. She stopped filming and looked at Brooke like something wasn't adding up. Later that afternoon, Aubrey messaged me privately and apologized. She said Brooke had told everyone the house was going to become marital property right after the honeymoon, and that I'd only backed out because I was secretly seeing someone else. I sent Aubrey one screenshot. The ultimatum text Brooke had followed up with after our argument: "If my name isn't on that house before the wedding, there won't be one." Aubrey replied, "Wow, never mind." That same week, I got promoted to accounting manager. Funny how much mental energy comes back when chaos leaves the room. I also started going back to the animal shelter on Saturdays. I used to volunteer there before wedding planning 8 every weekend. That's where I met Aaron. We talked while cleaning kennels and making fun of one dog who acted like a tiny landlord. Nothing dramatic. Just easy. Light. No leverage. No tests. Brooke somehow found out I'd been seen with someone. The cease and desist letter had already gone out. That didn't stop her from emailing me one last masterpiece accusing me of replacing her before the relationship was even over. I replied, "Please direct any further communication through counsel." That was the last direct message. Almost. Final update: it's been a little over 2 months. The legal part ended exactly the way my attorney predicted it would. Loud at first, then boring, then over. Brooke talked big for a while about suing me for half the house because she contributed to the home emotionally and domestically. My attorney's exact response was, "That is not a thing. Not in any courtroom she can afford." What did happen was we settled the actual money cleanly. Brooke had personally paid $1,240 toward joint wedding expenses that were still recoverable or easy to account for. I sent it back through counsel with an itemized breakdown. Not because she deserved a gesture, because I wanted 0 hooks left in me, 0 reasons for another email, 0 excuses for another performance. She cashed it. That told me everything. No lawsuit. No property claim, no magical last stand over our home. Just a deposit into her account and silence where all the principals used to be. Her mother called once during the settlement process. I almost didn't answer. Glad I did. She sounded exhausted, not angry, just tired. She said, "I'm not defending what Brooke did. I just need to know if this is really beyond fixing." I said, "Your daughter asked for legal ownership of my house as a condition for marrying me." When somebody turns love into a contract demand, I listen. There was a long pause. Then she said, "I wish she'd never said it like that." Me too, that was it. No shouting. No guilt trip, just quiet disappointment on both sides. She never called again. From what I hear, Brooke is telling people we had different values around commitment, which is true in a way. I thought commitment meant trust, partnership, and building something together over time. She thought commitment meant access on demand, in writing, before vows. Aaron and I have been seeing each other for a little while now. Slowly. Like normal people. Last weekend, we had takeout on my back patio and watched a thunderstorm roll in. Nobody asked to be added to anything except the playlist. The house feels like mine again, peaceful, boring in the best possible way. Mortgage auto drafts every month. The hydrangeas out front are finally coming back. I sleep better, I eat better, work is great. My blood pressure is probably sending me thank you notes. Here's the lesson if anybody needs one. Ultimatums tell the truth long before apologies do. Brooke kept calling it security, but that wasn't what she wanted. Security is building a life with someone. Security is trust. Security is transparency, not coercion. What she wanted was proof of control. Something she could point to and say, now I know he can't leave without losing something big. That's not marriage. That's leverage in a white dress. And the reason I ended it so fast is simple. If someone is willing to risk the entire relationship to force a transfer of power before the wedding, imagine what they'll risk after it. The ultimatum wasn't the problem. It was the warning. I just listened the first time. If you've ever had someone turn love into a negotiation, tell me in the comments. And if you think Colin made the right call, like and subscribe for more stories like this.